It allowed packetized data to move across the globe, a radical idea sponsored by DARPA. With ARPANET's success and new protocols, more networks developed, often ad hoc, each with its own rules. By the early 1970s, a standardized networking method appeared. Ethernet, created at Xerox. Ethernet became foundational, sparking private sector adoption as costs dropped. Now, Fortune 500 companies could replace pen and paper with terminals. Visuals. With ARPANET's success and new protocols, more networks developed, often ad hoc, each with its own rules. By the early 1970s, a standardized networking method appeared. Ethernet, created at Xerox. Ethernet became foundational, sparking private sector adoption as costs dropped. Now, Fortune 500 companies could replace pen and paper with terminals. By the late 1970s into the 1980s, personal computers emerged. The Apple I and Apple II appeared, and companies like Apple and Microsoft grew on the vision of computing for the masses. This explosion of networks and computers demanded new technologies and instructions. One example: converting computer addresses into human-friendly names. We needed a way to translate numbers like 8.8.8 into words like Google. This led to the Domain Name System, or DNS, which made networks user-friendly. Routing data also became vital as more nodes joined ARPANET. Routers acted as black boxes, directing traffic efficiently across networks and forming the backbone of growth. From the 1970s through the 1980s, scaling enabled communities of interest to form. NASA and the Department of Energy built networks for research, while the military adopted internetworking for defense. Ownership began shifting as public availability of instruction documents encouraged open development, letting anyone build tools on shared standards. This openness accelerated growth. Companies built technology on top of shared instructions, while working groups developed the next generation of standards. The Internet wasn't owned by any one group, it belonged to everyone. This collaborative open-source spirit created a feedback loop, driving even more innovation and adoption globally. By the early 1980s, ARPANET expanded from a handful of nodes on the U.S. West Coast to spanning the nation. The private sector drove growth with technologies like Ethernet, while public communities encouraged standardization. Purpose-driven networks interconnected, laying the foundation for today's Internet. In our next video, we'll explore how the Internet transitioned from DARPA sponsorship into privatization, becoming fully owned by the private sector. Remember to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories on the history of